So the first thing, or one of the things that's really important with this is true of any website or anytime you get in any specific industry, jargon becomes a really tough thing. So if you don't know the words to look for, it can be really tough to find something. Like if you want to add something dynamic to your site but don't know what it's called, maybe you want to add, you think, well, this thing that drops down when you click and more content drops down. If you don't know that's called an accordion, you would have no way of finding out how to do that until you run across it somewhere else, right, which makes it really tough. So a lot of these things, when we're giving you what to look for, the thing you should remember is what it's called. It's a dynamic widget. It's a add logo upload capability. Things like that. Those are important things to remember so that you can find them later. And as you become familiar with them, it'll be easier and easier to do that. What we want to do here is, on our WordPress theme here, and this is really common, again, we want to make the footer dynamic. So we want people to be able to add information here without messing with the footer at all.
Right.
So there's a couple ways to do that. The most common way is through the Widgets panel. If you've used Widgets before, it's very common. If there's a sidebar on the right side of the site, you can add a search bar. You can add categories and archives. So you have to add support for your theme to that, just like we added support for navigation menus. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Our theme currently doesn't have an option for widgets.
Right.
Okay. So there's menus, and there's customize, but there's no widget option. So we want to add support for dynamic widgets. And if you look here, WordPress dynamic widgets. That's the term that I look up that kind of gets me here. And they call it widgetizing your theme. This means I can now add widgets to the theme. So let's look at the WordPress codex for widgetizing your theme. And this is how to register a widget area. This should be added to your theme's functions PHP. We know that's the exact code we're looking for then. And that's going to allow us to access this. And I'll go through this code with you because it's not too tough to be able to start adding these once you get this code. We don't need the PHP in there because it's in there twice. So delete this PHP opening and closing tag out because, again, at the top we've already opened the PHP here. We don't need to do that twice. So it's already commented out nicely for us. Function, let's just call it token. And again, we're naming this function as we go here. So when I call it, I'm going to call it by the right name now. So what we're doing here is we're registering a sidebar, is what they call it. And then the array here gives it all of its attributes. So first of all, we can give it a name. Since we're going to create 3 of them, one for each of these 3 sections in the footer: a contact us, a quick links, and a latest tweets. So we're going to call the first one footer 1. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? So let's say footer 1 is the first one. You could say footer left or whatever else, and then we'll just call it footer 1. And that's the ID. There's a class and an ID. That's the ID for that specific widget that you're going to be creating. These additional 3 things, before, after the widget, and before title and after the title, those are completely optional. And we don't even have to add them. I'm just going to delete those. Okay? You can also add a description. There's a lot of different things you could possibly add with this, but that just kind of that's more and more complexity onto something that can be very, very simple. We need to have the name and an ID for it, though, so WordPress has something to call it for you and some way to specifically target it whenever you're trying to add CSS to it. So does that make sense what we're doing here at all?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're adding one widget right now. So now if we save that out, go to Manage Themes, and click our Appearance tab again, now we have the option for widgets there because we have somewhere to place the widgets. We have a sidebar that's set up. So now we have here our footer 1. Let's just grab this. We can put a text box in there. We can put whatever we want in there. Let's just say hello. Now this might be obvious that it's not going to display anything, but of course it's not because we haven't called it from within our theme yet. We just added the capability for our theme to implement that if we wanted to. So going back to the widgetizing themes area, the next section is how to display new widget areas. So this is the code from the 2012 default theme. This is the WordPress's way of doing it. And it starts with an if statement, and it is active, okay? What that's asking is, do we have content in there? So it's got to have some alternative if there's no content in there, and you want it to have, you know, if there's no content, it has to have some alternative. Maybe you put a default thing in there that's like a search bar if there's no other content that the user has put in there. And then it adds some coding. They can call this whatever they want. This is a div class they want to surround it with. And then here's the meat, which is PHP dynamic sidebar, name of the sidebar.
So we're going to get it and we're going to display it.
Yep. So let's just take that for now, just that meaty little code right there. And let's go to our footer, which we're already in here. And here's our column setup. And this is the call MD4, which is basically saying this is the first third, the based on the Bootstrap templates. And I'm just going to enter this down here and add this above it. Okay, so it'll have this stuff beneath it, but first we're going to call the dynamic sidebar 1 at the top of it, just to make sure that that's actually working. Save that out and refresh the theme. And it looks like it's not displaying anything. Why not? Any idea?
No idea.
No idea. Okay, let's go back and look. Here we have function token widgets. We registered a sidebar and we gave it a name of footer1 and an ID of footer_1. Well, right here, when we're calling the footer, we're saying sidebar1. We actually need to write down the ID that we're targeting. So let's put, is it footer_1 what we have it as?
Or is it footer-1? Yep, there it is.
Footer_1. So that's important to keep in mind. You're going to run into this problem sometimes, especially when you're copying and pasting code. You've got to identify the right elements that you've created. So our dynamic widget for this is working right now. So why don't we grab all this content and place it in that dynamic widget area. Let's copy it, save this on out, and go to our widget and place all of that inside of there. Now remember, a text widget can output HTML. So you're putting HTML code inside of there. And now when you update, you're dynamically pulling that contact us content from here. So as we can see, this has a little bullet element added to the side. That's because each one of these new widgets that we add here, WordPress adds that as a list item. So it kind of puts them in a list as it displays them. So in our theme currently, for some reason, the list items have a bullet there. So if we just say list style none, that's going to remove that list. So we can add that to our CSS. I'll do that real quick. Widget.li. Now we haven't done this before, but you can actually go in your style.css. It's perfectly safe to go in here and make changes. You don't want to do it in your PHP areas, but just with the style CSS, you can go to the appearance editor and do this. So I'll call this li.widget. Add the little code snippet of list style or none, right?
Yep.
And that should remove that code for us. Okay, let's go ahead and do the same thing with these other two areas. Now that we have one, we can actually stack up this code on top of itself. So we can just do this to add two more. Let's call them footer 2, footer 2, footer 3, and footer 3. So now we've registered 3 widgets. Very, very straightforward. We've given them names. If we go into our widget editor, we should see all 3 of those now. Footer 1, 2, and 3. And let's go to our footer. Grab the content. This is the quick links, which is actually, let's put the PHP in there first to make sure we're going to display the code. So this is footer 2, and this is footer 3. Am I going too fast, or is it follow alongable? I'm going to take that footer 2 content, put it in my widget in a text box. Save that, and then the same thing with footer 3 content, just our latest tweets. Save both of those, add.
Did you set the footer 3 to display to this page as well?
That would be a nice thing to do, yeah. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
There we go.
Totally dynamic. Now you can, with the quick links section, for example, there's a couple things you could change here, right? So right now this is all HTML. You could change latest tweets. You could actually, whoops, I don't know what I did there. You could put latest tweets up here instead, which is the title area, which automatically is going to output. It's going to change the formatting a little bit, but you could go in and find the function to change the title to an H3 instead, which was one of the early things that we wiped out of that when we added the register sidebar area. You can change that to an H3 and it'll automatically format right, or just go in and tweak the CSS a little bit to make it even a little easier to use. Furthermore, you can also make this a dynamic menu. Instead of having a little static menu, which we have right here, which we've created ourselves, you can add the menu page from over here, custom menu, and we'll just select the main menu to show you what it looked like. I'll add it below this one, and there's another menu going to be added here. Right. So now all of this stuff is going to be completely dynamic, and anybody can go in and make changes to it. So I think we've accomplished what we wanted to with the header and the footer, and I think we're ready to bang out the content areas and really get the site moving.